All right, so today we're going to learn a brand new language, and it's one that's actually all around us, but a lot of us don't really know how to read it. I'm talking about the visual language of the graphic novel. You know, it's a language made of panels and spaces and even silence. And trust me, once you learn it, you are never going to look at a story the same way again.
And I want to start with this really powerful idea from Alicia Elliott, because it just gets right to the heart of why all of this matters. It's this reminder, right, that some stories, they've just been left unwritten for way too long. And finding the right way to tell them, the right medium, that can be an incredible tool for taking those stories back. And we're going to see just how powerful that can be in a little bit.
So how do graphic novels actually pull this off? Well, first things first, we've got to toss out our old assumptions. This isn't about just being a novel with some pictures sprinkled in. Nope, this is a totally unique medium, and it plays by its own set of rules.
So, what are we talking about here, really? At its most basic, a graphic novel is just telling a story using both words and a sequence of illustrations. But it's that combination, that dance between the text and the pictures. That's what makes it so incredibly dynamic. And here's a really crucial shift in how you should think about this. That word novel and graphic novel, it can actually be kind of misleading. It's way more helpful to think about a graphic novel like a film. Seriously. It's like a series of carefully chosen shots, all designed to guide you, the viewer, through the story.
Okay, so if it's like a film, that means it's got to have its own grammar, right? Its own language, and it absolutely does. The language of comics, it's called sequential art.
The writer and artist Scott McCloud has this brilliant way of explaining it. Think about animation, right? You've got a bunch of images flickering by in the exact same spot on the screen. That creates the illusion of movement. But comics, they do something different. The images are laid out side by side, each one taking up a different space on the physical page.
And this is where the magic happens. That physical space on the page, it's not just there to look pretty. In the hands of a great artist, that space becomes the #1 tool for messing with our perception of time. All right, so let's pop the hood and look at the toolkit. How does the actual architecture of the page control the rhythm of a story? Well, it all starts with the spaces. So here's some basic vocab for you. You've got your panels. Those are like the individual snapshots of the action. The frames are just the borders around them. A bleed is when an image goes right to the edge of the page or even past it, for that big dramatic effect. And then there's the most important part of all.
The gutter. Yeah, that little strip of white space between the panels. It might look like nothing, but I'm telling you, it is everything. It's the pause. It's the breath between moments. It's where your brain does the work, connecting the dots and literally creating the action in your own mind. See, the artist doesn't show you every little thing. They trust you to fill in those gaps.
And get this, the size of that gutter, it literally translates into time. If the gutters are super narrow, it means things are happening fast. Boom, 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 quick succession. But a big, wide gutter, that slows everything down. It tells your brain that more time has passed between those two moments. The physical space on the page becomes story time. How cool is that?
Okay, so we've got the layout down. Now let's zoom in a little closer, right into the panels themselves. How does an artist actually control your eye and make sure you're looking exactly where they want you to look? Well, they use this technique called graphic weight. And the best way to think about it is like visual gravity. Certain things just have more pull. A really dark area in a light panel, a sudden splash of bright color, a weird repeating pattern, all of those things are going to pull your eye right to them. They create an undeniable focal point. So, next time you're reading a comic or a graphic novel, try this. Look at any panel and just ask yourself, where did my eye land first? I promise you, it's not an accident. The artist deliberately guided you there. They're using graphic weight to show you what's most important in that single moment. And this level of control even extends to how faces are drawn. So on one hand, you could have a super realistic, detailed portrait. That connects us to one very specific individual, right? But as you get less detailed, more simple, more iconic, all the way to what some people call an open blank style, something really amazing happens. The less detail there is, the more space there is for us to project our own feelings, our own experiences onto that character. A specific story suddenly becomes a universal one.
Okay, so we've got our toolkit. We know how to look at layout, how it controls time, how artists guide our focus. But so what? Why does any of this actually matter? Well, let's apply these tools to a really groundbreaking work and see the power they unlock. I'm talking about This Place, 150 Years Retold. This is an anthology, a collection of stories where indigenous creators are using the exact visual language we've just been breaking down to tell their own histories completely on their own terms.
But to truly appreciate what's going on in these stories, we need some context. And as you can see from this timeline, this is not ancient history. We're talking about policies like the Indian Act Amendment in 1885 that banned cultural ceremonies like the potlatch, or the 60s scoop, which started in the late 1950s. These weren't accidents. They were policies designed to systematically take apart indigenous cultures. This is the world that these stories of resistance come from.
And that brings us to this quote from the foreword, which is, wow, it's a really profound way to reframe history. So, what does that even mean, to live in a post-apocalyptic world?
Well, it means that the world as they knew it ended. It was systematically dismantled by colonialism. But, and this is the most important part, the story doesn't end there. The other half of that idea is survival. It's about continuity. It's about resilience.
And when you think about it that way, man, it reframes everything. Suddenly, the simple act of living, of carrying on your culture, of telling your stories, that becomes an act of heroism. Just surviving is the ultimate act of defiance, the ultimate victory.
So this book, this place, takes those stories of heroism, stories that were whispered, stories that were hidden or silenced, and it uses that bold, unapologetic, visual language of comics to blast them out, front and center. And think about it, with the tools we have now, an artist can use graphic weight to force us to look at a small moment of quiet defiance. They can use an open blank face to make the struggle of one specific historical figure feel like a struggle we can all understand.
And that, right there, is the ultimate power of this medium. When you master the tools, the panels, the gutters, the graphic weight, you can do incredible things. You can make history visible. You can give a voice to a memory. You can make us see the entire world through a perspective we might never, ever have found on our own. It makes the unseen seen, and the unheard heard.
So we'll end with this. You now have the toolkit. You know how to read this incredibly powerful visual language. And you've seen how it can be used to reclaim stories, to tell the stories that were left unwritten for so long. So the only question left for you is, what will your story be?